So what's up, people? So the plan is with the Buffy ranking. I was gonna do it this morning, I just couldn't. So what I might do is I don't know when I'm gonna see Oppenheimer, and I don't think I'm gonna have a chance this week. So what I might do is I'll probably just see Oppenheimer on the weekend, and I'll just review it because there's nothing else out right now that really interests me. So I might just see it on the weekend. So I'll probably just do the Buffy ranking on Thursday, and then Friday we'll do Extraction one. So um, So, I guess really quick before I start this video, plan is right now I'm doing my top 10 video movies. Sorry, I say videos by accident. Top 10 movies from 1995, and then tomorrow, World Is Not Enough. Wednesday, Raw Deal with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Thursday, not Screen Rant. Updated Buffy ranking, and then Friday, Extraction 2, and then I'm probably gonna try to see Oppenheimer like Saturday or Sunday. We'll see. But 1995 is a pretty good year for movies. Like there was a lot of big ones. I mean, that's when Die Hard 3, the first Mortal Kombat movie, GoldenEye for James Bond was a big hit. Casino, so that's gonna be a lot on my list. Horror at this point, like I said, is in limbo. Even though I have Halloween 6 on my list, that was not really liked by a lot of people. So it wasn't until you already know what my number one is gonna be for 96, which is next week. So, but 95 is a pretty solid year. I mean, musically things were changing. We're getting closer to the millennium at this point. We're 5 years away from the millennium. Grunge, like I said, is pretty much done. I mean, there were still grunge songs, but very much was done, because obviously Kurt died the year before. So, but 95 was a solid big change for movies at that time. So, fuck. I might have to change my number 4. Originally, it was gonna be Crimson Tide, but I love that movie, but I might replace it with Toy Story. I forgot Toy Story. So I'm gonna make a new thumbnail. But yeah, Toy Story. I forgot that was 95. It just hit me while I was doing, it just hit me just, I'm like, yeah, that's 95. So yeah, Toy Story is gonna be my number 4 now, not Crimson Tide. So I'm gonna make a new thumbnail after this video. So, but anyway, let's get into it. Top 10 movies from 1995. Number 10, Money Train. This is this is honestly one of Wesley Snipes' more underrated movies. This was one a lot of people don't even know about, but he did this with Woody Harrelson. They're about John and Charlie Robbins. They're transit cops who are basically adopted brothers who come from the same, different families but are adopted. And basically, they have to be, the money train is this train that gives money. And because throughout, Jennifer Lopez is in it, that kind of caused a little bit of a rift. And Charlie's kind of throughout the film, the theme is Charlie is kind of seen as a fuck up of the brothers. So that's even getting with the girl, or Grace, which is Jennifer Lopez's character. And even by the end of the film, they decide to rob the money train. And it's a fun little movie. The chemistry between Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson is great. I didn't put it in the year it came out, but White Men Can't Jump's a great movie. But their chemistry in this is great. I love the scene when they're about to get mugged. So Charlie and John fake it argument, and it's one of the most funny scenes. I definitely recommend it. It's a little unknown movie. A lot of people don't know it came out, but it's a fun little flick. So I definitely recommend it. Not the greatest movie ever, but it's a fun little one. So my number 9, Major Payne. One of the funniest, boot camp movies. Damon Wayans, who in my opinion is one of the more underrated Wayans brothers. I know we always talk about, Marlon and Sean Wayans, but Damon Wayans was funny as fuck in this movie as Major Payne. Sensitive. I fucking love that scene. It's just funny in general. And just some of the things he says. And it's just one of those, like, kind of, not coming of age, but, it's the story of, like, a soldier. He's a hardened, like, Marine. Basically gets a discharge and he decides to become a leader of a kid's boot camp. And it's some of the most funny scenes. It's definitely one of those movies you couldn't make now, like, just because some of the things he says, but it's a funny movie. It's a funny little flick. It's not the greatest movie ever, but it's, like, that's why there's not a lot to say. It's a kind of straightforward movie. You get some funny scenes when he's just going off at the kids. Damon Wayans is funny as fuck in it, and I definitely recommend it. My number 8, Jumanji, the original. Which, sidebar really quick before I get into it, Jumanji. The sequels aren't actually bad. The ones with The Rock, and those movies are actually fun. Like, I'll admit, I probably would watch the original more. Like, either way works. If you don't like the newer ones, you can kind of just watch Jumanji as a one-off. But I enjoy the sequels for what they are. They're not the greatest thing in the world, but seeing these actors have to play because they're kids, so they have to kind of play to the kid they're playing. I do like that aspect. So, but the original Jumanji, which I've never, I know it's based off a book, which I never read, but like a children's picture book. But the game basically, they play this game and it ends up bringing animals to life. Because each role summons like animals, and because in the 90s it was board games. That's why the other thing real quick about the remakes they work is it was at the time, like, because in this time it was board games, right? In the mid 90s, because video games weren't fully there yet, right? So, and R.I.P. Robin Williams, but he was great. The family in general was great. Like, you had a young Kirsten Dunst. Like, she's probably the most known name after Robin Williams in this movie. But it's a fun little flick. The effects for the time were good, and yeah, so definitely recommend it. It's a fun little flick about a family, playing this game that actually summons actual animals, and it's a good family movie too. Like, because Alan Parrish and his family kind of get closer after playing this game. So it's one of those. I haven't watched it in a little bit, but I'll probably review it and the newer ones at some point. I don't know when, but I'll at some point review them. So, Jumanji, the score is pretty good too. And I would not mind. I mean, there probably is one now, but like, a board game. But now onto my number 7. I know I'm kind of going through these quick. Well, some of them, there are certain movies I'll go into more detail, but some I'm just gonna give a quick But my number 7 is Halloween 6: Curse of Michael Myers, theatrical. I know this is a common, this is one of the more disliked Halloweens, and I know this is an unpopular take. I like this, and I'll admit I started off not liking it when I first watched it, and I was kind of first getting into Halloween. I did not really like it, but the more I watched it, because it was. And I think the one I watched was the producer's cut. And that's the one where it has like all the weird shit. The positive I have about the producer's cut, there is more Dr. Loomis scenes. Because unfortunately, while filming this, Donald Pleasance died. I think, he died while filming this. So that's the one positive. But the producer's cut just has too much weird shit in it. They lean way more to the cult. And I feel like the theatrical at least tones back the cold shit. I'll admit the biggest negative of this movie is not shot well. The editing is shit. I can't front. It's it feels like a music video at times. But I can still, what I like about it is I love the atmosphere. To me, it has my favorite Michael, or one of my favorite versions of Michael. Michael was a fucking monster in this movie. And the theatrical, that's the other reason I didn't like the producers. It had that, like, Michael was controlled by the cult, and I didn't like that. And I guess I'll just say it really quick, even though it's a fucking gross element. Oh, let me take a hit. I don't think I took a hit yet. Yeah, I don't really like it. This element of, it's implied that they had Michael fuck Janie, and that's how Danny was born. Where at least in the theatrical, it's more implied that they just got a sample of his DNA. Like they did it in a way. I like Michael in this movie, and I actually like Paul Rudd as Tommy. The more I watch it, I think the way he played Tommy is kind of believable. Like, Tommy went crazy because Michael Myers is that demonic of an entity. I can see that fucking with a kid to where it kind of can drive him crazy. And I think that's what I like about it. I like the atmosphere. It has that, like, autumn feel to it. That scene where Michael kills, like, all the doctors is great. Like, it has problems. But it has its issues, but I overall like it. That last act I love. Like, that chase. The music has grown on me, and I think that's the one thing I'll give the producer's cut. It has, like, more traditional Halloween music. It has more like that traditional Carpenter sound music, but I don't mind, like, because the theatrical has, like, because it was the late '90s, so you still had that grunge feel. So they had, like, a guitar kind of riff to, like, the song, which I know some people didn't like that, but I was okay with it. It didn't bother me. I've grown to love it. I actually think of, like, the three, some people call, like, Halloween's 4 through 6, the Thorn trilogy. Of that trilogy, I think that this one had the best mask. I love the mask in this movie. It makes you kind of retroactively be like, maybe that should have just been the mask the whole trilogy. Because I love Halloween 4, but the mask isn't great in that. And 5's mask is absolute shit. That, to me, probably the second worst mask after H2O's mask. But overall, I like Halloween 6. I don't blame people who don't like it. They gave somewhat of a backstory to Michael with the whole cult thing. Some people didn't like that. I'm not, like, gonna argue with you. I'm just explaining why I liked it personally, but yeah, that's my number 7. Now we're getting close to our top 5 here, but number 6, the Mortal Kombat movie. I fucking love this movie. I know it's cheesy, like some of the effects. Rewatched it. I haven't rewatched. I think I rewatched it around when that shitty 2021 one came out. Like this one, yeah, like Goro doesn't look great, but I still love that fight between him and Johnny Cage. This one at least is much more faithful, and the cast wasn't bad. Like, Cary Tagawa as Shang Tsung is one of the most iconic performances, to the point that they even, when they put Shang Tsung in MK11, they used Cary. They used his face, and even the dialogue, had him come back to do face model. And that's kind of how I feel like if they're going to do a newer Mortal Kombat, they should just do that. He's still around, and he still has that voice. And Christopher Lambert was great as Raiden, in my opinion. Yeah, like, he's not, like, the greatest Raiden in the world, but compared to the one we had in that shitty new one, he was great. I didn't mind the chick who played Katana. My only problem is, obviously, she didn't have the like, ninja look. She was just kind of in, like, a generic black. That's probably my only negative is with Katana, is the outfit. She's not in, like, they didn't give her like the mask or like the blue look. They give her like just she's just in like a kind of skin tight suit. Sonya was great. I thought Johnny Cage, like overall, like I think it really captured that world perfectly. Like I think they captured the rivalry between Kano and Sonya Blade perfectly compared to that shitty new one where it just I didn't feel that rival. That's why I like this one. It has its problems. Like I think some of the effects, like the scene where I don't like Scorpion's like chains coming out of his hand, like that looks stupid visually. But and then some of the costumes are very dated. But overall, I still think it at least is probably one of the compared to some of the other video game movies. I personally prefer it. I'm not gonna front and say it's a great movie because it's not, but it's still good. I still think it's a really good movie. Like not really good, but it at least captures the spirit. Like I mean, even like Johnny Cage, like his characteristics and the way he's portrayed, and Liu Kang was good. Carrie Shang Tsung, like Your Soul Is Mine, like that's iconic. The music, it at least tried. So I'll, like I'm gonna. That's why I put it. I had to mention it in my list for 1995. So, but my number 5 is GoldenEye. I fucking love this movie. This is to me this is probably the best of the at least the Pierce Brosnan ones. But this, if I were to do like a top 5 Bond movies, this would be up there. I mean, the plot, fucking, I love Bond and Sean Bean as Alec. Trevelyan, the villain of the movie, is so good. Fucking the set pieces. I had fun rewatching this. Yeah, that opening scene. I mean, obviously it spawned the game. That's probably why I don't blame people who say this is their favorite Bond. But I think it also has that mix of you have that classic Bond feel, but the little bit of that newer, like the action's a bit more spot on because this is the mid '90s, so we're post like '80s action, so the action's gonna be more kind of that style. But it still also has that feel. Like there's even a scene where you have sharks. You have Bond at exotic locations. Famke Jensen. Natalia's a good like Bond girl of the movie. That fucking final act at the satellite is great. That scene where you get the reveal that Alec is alive because you think he died in the beginning. So I think overall, this is definitely one of the better ones. One of Bond's best. I can understand why this for Bond like dominated night. Kind of was a big deal in '95. I mean, you also had the game, which I think that's a lot of people remember. But the movie itself is really good. So, and this was Pierce Brosnan's first, and what a first Bond flick. I think. And if we're going by that aspect, I think probably have to go with Pierce Brosnan. I think he probably had the best first kind of debut. Like, as much as I like Dr. No, and Connery's my favorite Bond of all time, but I think if we're just going by debut, this is the best one. I think he had a straight up badass. Like, what a film to debut in, And it's like one of those debut where it feels like he's just been doing it the whole time, He feels like he's just been Bond forever, even though this was his first movie. So my number 4, updated. I had to, sorry guys, last minute change. It was going to originally be Crimson Tide. I'm still going to mention it really quick. What a movie with Denzel and Gene Hackman. That just the fact, like, and it's not like, and it's very much, it's one of those movies where you're mainly in one location. Like, you start off in a different location, but pretty much once you're on the sub, you're pretty much on the sub for all of the movie until like kind of the end. And what dialogue and the mutiny The scenes alone between Denzel and Gene were just some of the best performances ever. So I had to mention it, but the fact that I forgot this movie came out in 1995 is kind of a crime. Toy Story. This was, to me, if you want to talk about like a movie that really made me as a kid, this was this one. I loved playing with toys, and this was a movie like kind of in your mind. Imagine what if your toys were alive? Like it's Chucky without like obviously the murder. Like it's meaning like it's about like what if toys were alive and they had their own like little kind of thing going on. And that's what they did here. I mean, fucking Tom Hanks is as Woody and fucking Tim Allen as Buzz is some of the most iconic performances ever. Andy's a great kid. You have great characters. Even the bully was fun. Sid. And some of his toys are fucked up. Like, even for, like, a kid's movie, I'll admit, that's some trippy imagery. The animation was great. The amount of times I've rewatched this movie. I'll admit, not recently, because, you know, how I feel about Disney. But I definitely, like, as a kid, I watched this one a lot. And, you know, the relationship between Buzz Lightyear and Woody, like, it, you know, obviously it starts having, you know, kind of contentious because Woody's a little bit jealous because, you know, Buzz is like the new toy. Because for a while, Woody was Andy's main toy. So you have that element. But then if they eventually become friends, I mean, this is the movie that started a franchise. 3 movies. I'm not watching 4. I've never watched 4. I heard it was shit. And then I'm not watching 5. So, yeah. But this movie to me was perfect. I had to, the fact that I forgot it came out in 1995, so I'm like, yeah, I had to mention it. This is a big one for me, like, especially being a kid who played with a lot of toys. It makes you kind of even imagine in your head, your toys kind of like talking to each other and them doing their own little adventures. That's what this movie was. This was how you perfectly caught imagination in general. So, I mean, even having Barbie, like, obviously, you're going to have a Barbie mention. That was a big toy at that time. So, I love, like, the pop culture references. But this was one I watched a lot, like I said, as a kid. So, but yeah, I had to mention it. Number 3, which is what I reviewed recently, Braveheart. The story of William Wallace, the way they capture it, that iconic scene when he's at the battle, you know, talking to his men on the horse. They won't take our freedom. Like, it's one of the most iconic scenes ever. Mel Gibson's performance. Like, that's one of those movies where the battle scenes are intense. It's one of the best period pieces. Like, they did a lot of, like, you could tell who wrote this did a lot of research into the actual person. Obviously, it's not historically accurate, but it's still such a great film that this is one of those, like, Mel Gibson films that are still talked about to this day for me. And the props, like, they really did a good job with, like, every little detail, man. Like, that ending, you know, you feel for the character, going, you know, you even kind of start with him as a kid and you see the fucked up things that they have to deal with. And after his, you know, longtime girlfriend is killed, or no, his wife, I guess at that point she was his wife. She gets killed and he leads, like, he starts a revolution. Like, it's one of those movies that really portray this well. So yeah, I had to mention it for 1995. So, my number 3, Braveheart. I definitely recommend this one. It's a bit long, but it's not boring. Like, you're into it. So, Braveheart for number 3. My number 2, Friday. The original Friday for me is it's probably one of my top favorite comedies of all time. It's one of the best hood and, you know, stoner comedies. Chris Tucker as Smokey is one of the most funny performances. Is very quotable, and the story's very simple. Like, Craig just lost his job, and Day Day has to, he's a weed dealer, has to have to basically get $200 for his boss, Big Worm, or Big Worm will kill him. And he sees Craig smoke for the first time. The soundtrack is Tiny Lister as Debo. It's one of the amount of times I've watched this movie, and just even watching, I just kind of quote it at the time. It's funny as fuck. The music's great. I had to put this on the list. I definitely recommend. I mean, I understand some people don't like kid comedies, so I can understand. Like, it's one of those things. Like, it may not jive. The comedy may not jive with you, but Chris Tucker as Smokey just is one of the most iconic roles. That's why, like, the Friday sequels, I don't hate them. Like, All Mid 2 is probably the weakest, but I can understand why some people, it's not as strong as Chris Tucker as Smokey is so iconic. Like he made that role like that. When you think Friday, you think him with that one. That's why that one, this one's, and the small budget it was made for. The soundtrack was great. One of the few decent, rap albums at that time. This is when rap was actually still pretty good, not just trash like it is now. But I had to, I watch this pretty much anytime it's Friday, and I just kind of feel like putting it on, I put it on. So yeah, I definitely watch this one all the time. I mean, to get you high today, because Friday, yeah, that scene alone. So Friday at number 2, and number 1, Die Hard 2 or 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance. This one is the second best in the franchise. Samuel Jackson is Zeus. The chemistry between John and Zeus is some of the funniest shit, and that's the crazy thing. You have a villain in Simon Phoenix, who's actually Hans Gruber. Not Simon Phoenix, but Simon Gruber, who basically I love how he makes it seem like he wants revenge for his brother, when in actuality he just wants money. Like, they kind of do that same kind of trick like they did in the first one, where they made you think Hans was a terrorist. It's kind of similar here. Like, he makes it seem like he wants revenge on John for what for killing his brother. No, he just wants money from the Federal Reserve. It's Jeremy Irons is so good as Simon Gruber. In fact, he's not Alan Rickman, but I really loved him as Simon Gruber in this. I thought he was a really good foil for John in this. And the chemistry between Zeus and John is so great. The moment they meet, is a great pairing. I love their just having to go through the city and try to get to that scene where they have to get to the fucking subway before the bomb explodes, and they have to get to the phone is some of the funniest shit. And it's at a time when movies were just funny and you were joking at each other. The way John, basically Simon forces John to have a sign that has the hard R on it, and he tells him to go to the I think it's Harlem, basically. There's a lot of black people, and this is how him and Zeus meet. And there's even a scene later where they have to go to the park and try to get a certain amount of water into the jugs, and they start arguing. And you have John basically mentioning you call Zeus racist because he has a problem with him being white. This was when movies just had fun. And I thought this was a great third entry. To me, this is where Die Hard ends. I don't hate 4, but I don't look at it as canon. I just feel like this one really ends the story perfectly, John, he has throughout the film, he has having trouble with his wife, which has kind of been a theme throughout the film. But I thought, obviously Bruce Willis brought the performance to great. Sorry about that. But out of 10, this is definitely like a 9 out of 10. I watch this one all the time. This is easily the second best in the franchise. The I love the final act in the film, and yeah, so that's my favorite in the year. So 1995 has been fun. I kind of can't wait till we get to 96 because like there's gonna be some big ones. I mean, obviously 96 is gonna be important to me because that's the year I was born. So I'm gonna definitely have. There's gonna be a little bit of a not to me personally, but like talking about why that year kind of means to me personally. But you have big ones like Independence Day, obviously my number one. Scream. Um, I don't think what else is 96. Frighteners was 96. The first Mission Impossible, which I haven't watched it recently, but I definitely will at least mention it because that's a big one from that year. When Mars Attacks, there's a big, decent variety in '96. So, Eraser, and that's an underrated Arnold movie too. So, there's a couple. So, anyway, tomorrow for sure, World Is Not Enough, and then we'll do Die Another Day next week. Or I might do Die Another Day like later in the week because I do want to. Because we're gonna unfortunately have to get. Actually, no, actually might just wait till next week because I'm gonna drag out. Part of me wants to drag out the Brosnan ones just because unfortunately I hear like besides Casino Royale, the Daniel Craig ones are pretty much. Sounds like we're gonna be in Shitsville for the rest of them, minus Casino Royale. That's like the only one I've heard really anything about those. But positive in terms of the Daniel Craig ones, that's the only positive I've heard is that one. So we'll see. Obviously, I'm gonna go with my own mind blind. So anyway, cheers. 1995 was not a bad year. Sorry about the last minute change. I just forgot that I don't know how I forgot Toy Story. Toy Story was 1995. But anyway, cheers, and I'm gonna peace out. As usual. Talk to y'all later.